Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing today? Happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining me again for another little live video. And today we're going to be talking about owning your movement and owning your movement through breath. Okay, so if you are watching, please do give me a little thumbs up or a little heart if you're watching on Instagram, and please do share this with your friends if you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions at any point, please do pop them in the comments and tag me in them, particularly if you're watching this on catch up. So we're going to be talking about owning your movement and owning your movement through being able to breathe with the movement. And I first heard this idea of owning your movement through someone I follow called Monica Volkmar. I highly recommend checking her out if you don't follow her already. She's amazing. And what she taught me, and many other people that I've trained with since then, is that if you're doing a movement and you're not actually able to breathe in that movement, then you're not really owning the movement. So something that it's something that I've been working on a lot, really, because I often find if I'm having to concentrate on something, I tend to be holding my breath. And it's the same thing happens with complex movement, or when you're learning new movement. Personally, sometimes I'll find I'll be holding my breath, and I'm sure it might be the same for you. A little secret, if you take classes with me and I cue you to breathe during the class, it's probably because I've just realised I'm not breathing myself. So it's likely that my students are also concentrating and maybe need to remember to breathe as well. So another thing that can happen as well, and particularly today I want to talk really about when you're doing core strength work. So, mat-based core work, for example, or although this really can apply to any kind of exercises that you're doing that require you to exert some force and also, keep your spine safe and stable. The brain can also not only kind of stop you from breathing because it's focusing on, executing all of the movements correctly, but also it's helping to use your diaphragm and your pelvic floor for added stability, which is great because it's trying to protect the spine. However, you actually want to have access to that oxygen in order to be able to still create the energy to do the music. What am I talking about? To do the movement. So we need to be able to find a way to breathe through that movement. So what I'd like you to think about is your breathing as a piston, and your diaphragm, which sits at the top of this cylinder that is your torso, and that's the top of your piston, and then your pelvic floor muscles are at the bottom of the piston. So when you breathe in, your diaphragm is going to contract and it goes down into your abdomen, into the abdomen, and it kind of presses all of your organs and everything down a little bit. The pelvic floor is going to release to allow that to happen, and also you're probably going to get a little bit of expansion in the belly as well. So when we're talking about taking nice deep breaths, we also talk about expanding the belly as well, which is great to be able to get some nice good lungfuls of air in. Then in reverse, when we breathe out, the pelvic floor muscles are going to contract and lift, and the diaphragm releases. So this just happens, or it should happen naturally when we're breathing anyway. Now the challenge comes when we try and do this core work and we want to maintain quite a solid bracing connection all the way around our trunk. So if you're not sure what I mean by bracing, it just means kind of holding this really nice and solid so that you can move your limbs, for example, whilst your spine stays in a nice neutral position. I have another live video on that, so I'll pop a link to that in the comments, or check out my IGTV if you are watching this one on Instagram. However, when we're holding this, you've not got any space for the belly to expand to allow those your organs to expand into it. So if the diaphragm presses down, then there's not really going to be space for that. So what you have to allow instead is the diaphragm to widen the rib cage just a little bit, which creates that space for the contraction, and then as you breathe out, then everything can release up again. So just to clarify, let's place the hands around the waist if you're watching me, and I can see there's some people on Facebook and Instagram, so thank you for those of you who have joined me. Really thinking about a little bit of energy all the way around your abdominals, and now try and take a nice deep breath, but without losing that connection, the brace connection. And I can't talk and do this at the same time, so allow your rib cage to expand, and then as you breathe out, you're going to lift the pelvic floor. And by getting that active contraction of the pelvic floor as well as your out breath, that's actually going to create a little bit more stability in the bottom of the torso, and it's just going to add to the stability you're trying to create, and you know, just make you stronger. I had a little comment over there. This is super interesting. Yeah, it is super interesting. When I found out about it, I was just like, oh wow, that's so cool how it works. So really thinking about the diaphragm of the pelvic floor as this piston. So coming down and then coming back up again, but obviously you've got to maintain this connection if you want to do that core work where you may be moving your limbs, you're moving your arms, so you're building strength in the abdominals all the way around. And so therefore you have to really get that rib cage, allow it to expand, but without flaring and extending your spine. Remember, we're trying to keep our spine in neutral. And obviously in real life, our spine is not going to stay in neutral all the time. When we're dancing, our spine is not going to stay in neutral all the time. It's supposed to move. But the more we can train these muscles to be strong, to work, and to keep the spine safe, whatever its position is, or however we move the limbs, then, you know, the safer this movement's going to be. And the more our body's going to allow us to do these movements well. And the same goes with the breath. The more we can control the breath and be able to bring oxygen into the body whilst we're doing this movement, the more ability we're just going to be able to have to do these movements. I'm going to talk a little bit about connecting breathing with dance next week, so don't miss that one. And if anyone's got any questions, please do jump in and comment on them now, because I'm going to jump off in a second. But just a little reminder to give me a thumbs up or a little heart if you haven't done already and you're watching. Please do share this with your friends. And there is a link in the comments as well for my Happy Hips mini course if you are not on there already. It's a really short course, just 5 days, short video every day, just a little bit of pelvic release to get into those muscles deep in the hips, to get them to release and relax, and a little bit of strengthening work, which I really recommend doing before you do your core work. So bringing balance to the pelvis before we start to really strengthen around the core. So, all right, I haven't seen any questions come in at all. So thank you very much for watching. Like I said, if you're watching this on catch up and you have a question, you can pop it in the comments and tag me. And please do pop a little comment with hashtag replay if you watch this as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention at the beginning, this was particularly for Jennifer as well. I know you asked me about breathing a while ago, so I'm sorry it took me so long to come back to you on this. And then it's come up. This is so Pilates. Breath, breathe out for the hard stuff and in for coming back to center. She's so with me. Yes, Eleanor, indeed. Yeah, it is. I think I'm not Pilates trained, but I have done a lot of Pilates over the years, and I really remember that idea of really expanding the rib cage, breathing wide into the rib cage in order to make that breath happen. And I never really, back in the days when I took Pilates, I didn't have quite so much understanding of breathing, but now I understand why. So yes, exactly, very much connected to breathing and Pilates as well. Okay, thank you so much for your comments, Eleanor, and thank you very much for everyone who watched on Instagram as well, and I will see you all next time. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.